Welcome back to War Thunder, welcome to the Dub Talks number 50, and this is quite an anniversary for me, and so I wanted to name it The Quackening is Back, and I want to go back to the first episode and talk about stuff that I talked in the first one about it. First of all, why is it called Dub Talks, or it comes from, which purpose it will serve or serves right now, then the duck itself, the Henschel 129, and where is Enduring Confrontation, and I hope that it's not just a World War mode test. Furthermore, that is somewhat coming together or coming along with the maps for air realistic battles, and I just wanted to look at the diversity, good maps and bad maps that we have in the game, where the hell Ruhr is for, you know, higher tier props, and not the low tier version, then new air realistic maps, and why they are one of the laziest things that I have seen at the hands of Gaijin. Then I want to talk about the Dagger Engine 5.0 and what that means and which kind of improvement it will bring. And then at the end I will shortly talk about ships and, you know, a bit of baby steps. Then of course some recording issues that I had in the past, a bit of World of Warships, and also a bit of War Thunder problems with shadow play and also my recording or editing software. Then also of course questions from last Dub Talks. So let's begin. So May the 13th, 2016 is the date of the release of the first Dub Talks, where I talked about the Enduring Confrontation and one of the first tests, and I absolutely loved it. And I played the duck. And because I also love DuckTales, or I loved it when I was young, I thought that would be a good reference, so I named it just simply Dub Talks. So this is where it comes from. It should serve the purpose of talking about multiple topics in War Thunder and looking at the bigger picture and showing some gameplay in the background as some sort of, yeah, you could almost say it's a bit like Mingles with Jingles, just from me. Obviously about War Thunder and not World of Tanks, World of Warships and stuff like this, but it's just my thing, okay? And therefore I think it's a good series to have once in a week or every second week one episode, something like this. So you can see it's around about, yeah, nearly every 10-11 days I release one episode, so not very regularly, but nevertheless I do it. And this time, as I mentioned, we talk about different stuff itself. Yeah, in the background you kind of see the gameplay of the duck, the Henschel 129 B2, the Romanian premium version, which I guess is now no longer available for purchase, but for all intents and purposes, with the exception of the skin, it's the same as the in-game one. Battle rating 3.3, and we just not have two machine guns, two MG17s with 2000 rounds, which are useful, two 20mm MG151 with 500 rounds, so you're basically a Focke-Wulf, but it's all centralized mounted. And then you have the option of mounting 4 50kg bombs, bad, a single 37mm gun with just 12 rounds, bad, and also a single 30mm MK103 with 100 rounds, very good. And with that you can do the therapeutical thing of cracking pillboxes, cracking tanks and so forth, but also put big holes into enemy fighters that just underestimate you and for some bizarre reason always lose their mind and go head on with you, which is a bad trade-off for them, as you might see in the background. Yeah. Enduring Confrontation, it is practically like realistic battles, except you have multiple start zones and you have a changing front line with changing hotspots. It gives numerous targets for interceptors in the shape of, for example, AI B-17s that are going to bomb an airfield, or you are forced to take down an attack by enemy ground units on some defensive positions, and of course that will also attract fighters, and this will change the front line, will change the points, and the battle takes place for hours. Also, there was one test that participated 64 players in, so 32 on each side. It was a test and it gloriously failed because Gaijin actually messed up the filling in process of players. So there were not even 32 players on each side, or you know, names in the team list. It was rather that it was, how to say it, yeah, it was filled with AI, and they counted as player kills if it took them down, and the respawn and so forth. However, it needed a bit of polishing, a bit of rework, but the actual idea was very, very good. It gave so much more life for existing planes, you know, that are excelling in enduration, you know, flight endurance. Difficult word. What I mean by that, for example, if you have in a normal realistic battle, and you have, I don't know, a Spitfire Mark 9 versus a P-51, okay, and you look at how they fly. Of course, the Spitfire Mark 9 is the better thing to take, because you have enough ammunition to take down 3-4 people if the guns are working and you have good aim. But in the long run, a P-51, especially nowadays with the 50 cals, can take down technically a lot more players, because it has much more, how do you say it? It has much more ammunition per gun, and it hits as hard. So in the long run, a P-51 can stay longer in the air, and this is a tactical advantage during confrontation. So planes that can take a beating, that can also dish it out for longer and have a good payload, be it ground attackers, bombers or fighters, they have a tactical advantage, and suddenly the Germans didn't look that good anymore from a tactical perspective. But from a perspective of short-term engagements, even the Germans could prepare themselves. The Me-410 B6R3, for example, had time to climb to intercept the B-17s. Same goes for the Focke-Wulfs and the TARs, and I enjoyed that. And also the Bf-109s. Well, this was the game mode where I really felt that the, you know, team play really paid off. It was kind of hilarious when there were like 7-8 German fighters flying in formation, and single single B-17s or single Spitfires tried to engage them. They were slaughtered, and suddenly people are crying, oh look, the Allied planes are so bad. But it was really the difference in how to fly. And you also, I mean, I participated in numerous raids on the enemy airfield with German bombers, where we flew into information, where we took our time to climb, and where we then dropped our payload, and then for example in the Do 217 in the E variants, tried to boom and zoom some fighters. Sometimes it was even successful, and therefore really hilarious when you boom and zoom an unsuspecting P-51 or Spitfire. And we got great fighter cover in numerous stages, like there were some Focke-Wulf F8s in close proximity to actually cover a retreat if somebody came near, but they also carried still the 1000 kilogram bomb to attack the airfield in addition. But then there was a further screen of Bf-109s and Focke-Wulfs in various different layers that actually also attacked the enemy, so that they prevented them to get vision on us, you know, with the 10-11 kilometer range. And it worked out so perfectly. It was perfectly executed, and it was not even, you know, numerous squads taking part. No, back in the days it was some sort of automatic teamwork. You know, you automatically took part in this. This was the days, this was the peak of German teamwork. Since then, it still is there, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't reached this kind of glory. And Enduring Confrontation is renowned to be, or how to say it better, it's known to be just a World War mode testbed, but I think it's a big waste of opportunity. That's my opinion. And also the map design and how the ground units were displayed and whether were appearing on various different stages or places on the battlefield, it just worked out. It was something fresh, it was something new, and I absolutely loved that. I think this is a big win, or it was a potentially big win for War Thunder. Now there are critics that said, well, it would further split the community, and I say, well, yeah, but it would bring also old players or attract even new players more than the game in its stage would normally do. Think about this. I mean, it's a great alternative. Maybe make it event just for the weekend, you know, and suddenly also the American ground strikers and bombers would serve even more purpose than they do in Air Realistic, where the spam of bombers and attackers is a real problem for the Americans. Let's move to another topic that is in tight conjunction with that topic, in my opinion, and this is the problem with the maps for Air Realistic battles. Okay, we saw for years now the addition of new tank maps with even further details and better graphics and so forth. Later on I will also talk about the Dagger Engine 5.0. However, back to the topic of Air Realistic battle maps. I think this is something that Gaijin really lacks, the awareness of the desire of players for something new. I play the game for 5 years now, and where the spam of new maps in arcade showed me one thing: the laziness of Gaijin. The maps were taken from something that already exists and were just a little bit reworked, a little bit of reshuffling landing strips and the airfields, but the biggest problem that I saw is that the geometry of the map was very linear, it was very symmetrical, okay, and furthermore the ground units were played in a also very mirror way, and especially in arcade you really see it, how it is like painted or designed, you know, where there are the bombing points, where are the airfields, where are the pillboxes and the tanks, and it's not very nice to play on. And for example, I give you a very good example: Norway. Norway is one of the best designed maps that you can imagine. Well, why is that? So first of all, it's somewhat symmetrical, but it brings a different flavor to it. First of all, the majority of targets are naval vessels. Then the allies have to capture a landing strip, but they still have the option of carriers. The bombing points are not in the near vicinity of the main fighting zone, which is the central airfield. And yeah, there are also very unique targets, like the U-boat bunker, okay, the submarine bunker with all the AAA emplacements on it. It's a very unique target, very loved by American bombers, and I think this is great. Furthermore, you have canyons, the weather is cool, it cools down the engines, even the Italian planes are nice to fly there, you know, overheating issues and so forth. Another example is Sicily. Now Sicily is a dream for German fast attacking bombers like the Ju-88 if you get on it, or the Dojo 17s. You can rush in and you can actually hit the ground targets before they fully can you know, move out of the starting location where they're crammed together, and you get those very beautiful 10 kill strikes with a Dojo 17 with the 4-ton bomb load. I mean, technically it's possible to get even more, but this is the one that I achieved so far with a Dojo 17, which has the issues of the first drop and then the bomb bay opening, and then it releases the other two bombs. Okay, so that's just an example. And when I look at certain new maps, they are like arcade maps, just bigger, and I dislike it. And especially they use just the tank maps and inflate them, but it's a very boring design. Sinai, for example, you have the pillbox row for the Allied side, and then you have the tanks attacking for the Germans. Also, this is a bit of an inequality of the quality of the ground units, okay, because I think it's easier to take down a pillbox than a moving tank, especially when you have the option to attack the pillbox from every side. but you have to attack the tank from the side or the rear. And this is just again an inequality in the how you can use your ground attackers. So this is just to be mentioned here. Spain is actually not that bad in this respect, that the actual fighting zone is over the ocean and the ground striking zone is far from that. However, it's too much. The map is too big for low tier things to happen there. For Jets, in theory, it's okay, but Jet players really complain about it, and I agree to that. For Jets, it's also not very nice, but it's also not very good for high tier props. The map is a bit too big, okay, for the matches that we have on. It could be very, very good for enduring confrontation, okay, and for many, many more players. For example, the Allied runway that you know, goes to the ocean, just turn it 180 degrees. Maybe that will bring a very easy fix, so that the planes start into the other direction, so that the actual combat is maybe not always above the ocean. That's just a fast, quick solution, at least an idea for a fast, quick solution. So that brings me to the next question: where the hell is the Ruhr map? I think I haven't played it for months now, and this is a bit of a shame, because Ruhr again was a somewhat asymmetrical map design that I loved. For example, there were the important ground units that were blinking. If you took them down, you got the reward via the ticket bleed for the enemy team. However, there were also some hidden ground units that you didn't see on the radar, that you just noticed when you fly over them in your proximity. So that could you use to fool the enemy when there was just one row of tanks left, and now you attacked a lonesome tank that was somewhere on the map in an attacking group that was not displayed. Then the enemy fighter thought, oh well, I know exactly where the enemy ground attack is. He descended from altitude, gave his position away, and then you could take them down. So this was again a very nice map. Furthermore, it was the first map where I think Gaijin tested the vehicle implementation after quite some time. And yeah, also I think the area for bombers to go out. I think maps for RRB are done as of late in a bit of a lazy approach at the hands of Gaijin. I want unique flavored maps, something like Norway, okay, something like Ruhr, which I have no idea why they took out. A map like Sinai is boring to look at, it's boring to play, it's very repetitive, and it's just lazy design with the displacement of the ground units. So this is my approach towards this. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the Dagger Engine 5.0 displacement mapping, mud and puddles. And as you can see, this is how, for example, the Normandy map looks at the moment on one of the roads leading to the church. And you can see the roads and some walking area, I guess, and the destroyed buildings. Now, there were numerous posts already about the Dagger Engine 5.0, but this is recorded on Sunday, so this is the complete status as of now. And how should I say it? You know, it looks a bit dull here. Okay, the road is okay-ish, I guess, but this part here, it gives you just the illusion of some structure to the 2D overlay, so to speak, of the ground. So before I go into details and show you all the stuff that there is, and you know, you can read through this stuff for yourself, World of Tanks just announced their 1.0 project, or patch 1.0, with the complete overhaul of the graphics of the HD maps, and it looks stunning. When I think about how World of Tanks looked a few years ago, and people said, oh, look at War Thunder, it's new and shiny, but War Thunder keeps up, okay? They are never something, there is never something that they let down on when it comes to the graphic. I mean, look at the models, look at some of the newer maps, and yeah, then we still have some old textures and foliage, and they will change it. Look at this. So you can see that there is a little bit of difference in the volume, so to speak, of the ground. The road looks a bit higher. I hope it's still concrete and not some mud derivate or something like this. And we can see that now there is actual structure to the 3D part. Then there is also a video. This looks absolutely stunning. Look at the stones in the road and where there is all the dirt gathering, and also the dead leaves from the trees on the side, and also the puddles. It gives the map a lot more depth. And they said here that it is depending on the weather. So they say here that it is the mud, to which will come in a moment. But I also guess, you know, if it's dry, there will be not a lot of puddles. I think this picture looks stunning. It gives much more life to the map. And yeah, let's see how this RE251 looks in mud. I think I hate on this mud that is randomly distributed for years now on maps, where you just have your difficulties driving through with all-wheeled tanks or something like this, or armored cars, and you can pass through with tanks with ease, even on city maps. However, I think it is now eye candy. This is now dry and dusty, and let's see how it is with slushy. This looks absolutely stunning. And you know, where the tank drives through, you know, where the tank just went through the ground and made it deeper, the water gathers together, and you know, all the reflections and stuff. It's looking amazing here. And if they also get the shininess here in when it, for example, rains or there is a storm going on, it would be absolutely amazing. The question is, when they say it depends on the weather, will they bring in weather defects? Something like, you know, a dust storm on a desert map, or, you know, fog, something like on a city map, that will really prevent the long-range sniping, for example, and will force players into some close combat. Or will therefore allow for some flanking over open field that with clear weather is unthinkable. So this is very interesting to think through. I mean, we technically already have this. I guess there was a test like a few years ago in an event, and since then they never brought it in. I think now it's time that they bring it in. And then check out how much variety and new mud and puddles bring to familiar scenes. So this is the road outside from the center of the map, I guess, down to the direction of a spawn zone. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, that is amazing. So I'm not quite sure if they also will update then the sound effects if you drive through the water, and how impacts there will look like. I mean, I saw the video, but this is absolutely amazing. So just when I thought, War Thunder might just get into the backyard with their graphic when when Wargaming announced their 1.0 project, and I saw the footage from videos from certain YouTubers, it looked stunning, and I think the players of both games profit from the competition from both games. So competition is good, but wargaming is better to drive actually the War Thunder devs into the direction of improving their game. But I have to stress it out. This is just eye candy. Okay, how much value it brings to the gameplay is one question. Then the other question is, will the gameplay, will the balance improve? I cannot really be baited anymore with just new shiny graphics. I saw it on so-called AAA titles like Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, Battlefield 1 and so forth, where there is stunning graphics, but then at a certain point the game just dies within months of multiplayer. And that's one of the reasons why I never purchased one of those games, and I stick to War Thunder. So there is that. The next small topic is about ships, and there was a test and I played exactly one match and I saw certain improvements. How the AA on your ship works, how active it is and so forth. I like that. I also saw a bit of improvement in my S100. You might see the gameplay right in the background right now. I saw some improvement how everything works a little bit. It's not a big step as I hoped. There are still the very same vehicles as far as I can tell for all nations. You still can test out the planes, which I think is still rubbish. The aiming system is still not where I actually want it to be. However, one improvement that I noticed is that you actually can destroy destroyers now with depth charges. I don't know if it was just a lucky run, but even the first two depth charges did tremendous amounts of damage to a destroyer, whereas before I could dump like all my depth charges from my S100 underneath a destroyer and he would not die. So there is that. So I think, yeah, we go into the right direction with baby steps. That brings me also to the next topic of recording issues. So normally I press a button and then it records, and that works just fine within War Thunder. However, I have some World of Warships footage that is not comparable to the quality of War Thunder, not because the game isn't up to the standard of War Thunder, but because something really messes with the recording, and otherwise you would have seen one, maybe two World of Warships videos about the Nagato tier 7 Japanese battleship, or a big fat rant about the useless the Große Kurfürst, which I absolutely despise. Just a few words of criticism here. I just simply cannot stand, passive team play. I cannot stand the tier 10 meta. I cannot stand that when there is a broadside cruiser at 10 kilometers and I shoot my 12 guns on him, that not a single bloody motherfucking shell hits. And if I get like 3 or 4 hits, 3 of them are overpens, 1 is a pen, for not even 10,000 combined damage on a broadside cruiser. I hate that, so I cannot stand this. In other news, the Nagato, you hit every bloody single salvo just with 8 guns that are equally big, and it's just much more fun to play at tier 7 than at tier 10, and it has nothing to do with the skill. That's the really outrageous thing. So much for World of Warships and why there are no videos if you want to know this. Yeah, and that then brings us to the questions from last Dub Talks. So the last Dub Talks was like 90 minutes long. I hope I will shorten it down a little bit with this episode, and that depends now on the questions of the community. So let's go straight into it, and Sergeant Rumble has here the first question, and he asks basically if I can make some videos about the best of viewers, so my community or my subscriber base sends me replays and I'll feature them. That's basically what he asks, I guess. The answer is, I thought about it. Second of all, it would be a nice idea, but the problem is it's very time intense. Okay, I need to watch the replay. Is it worth showing? Is it really good? Was it skill? Was it luck? Then it's me judging it. Then the problem is if somebody comes along with a 10 kill game in an FE4 202 against Tigers. Yeah, it was good, I guess, but is it really fun to watch somebody to ruffle stomp a German team that is worse in every single respect in a tank that is massively under-tiered? So it also depends on what the community thinks is a good replay, okay, or is worth showing, and what the purpose of it would be, and the amount of emails that I would get, okay, if it happens to be that somebody now features replays. I would get spammed, and the replay system within War Thunder is not there where I would say I would go into it. It's just too much time investment, and I still want my content to come from me. Okay, so I play the games, I get the experience and so forth. It would be very interesting to see the game from another person's perspective, his approach, where he goes on which map, where the capture zone is in the middle, and does he flank, does he go in, does he go for the wide flank, is he very campy, is he very active, was it luck, had he good situational awareness, did he gamble in certain situations. It's not that easy to notice all this stuff when you are, you know, on the watching end of a replay. And the first hint that I got for this was when I sent my replay of the 100 with the 10 kills on Sinai to a buddy of mine at this point in time, and Implete made a fantastic job at you know, commenting on my replay. However, certain things he did not get right, or I would disagree with. However, he couldn't know because I didn't give him a description. I just sent him the replay, said, look, your subscriber, a few of your subscribers mentioned it, that they want to see it, here it is. And you know, the other part is I have all vehicles in the game except for the Heinkel 162A1 and the TU2, as far as I know. And the TU2, there are some tech true versions that are better or worse, I don't know. But the Heinkel 162, I think nobody wants to see that thing, because already the arguably better version with the 20mm and the tech tree sucks really hard. So that's one thing. Yeah, that answer was a bit longer than I expected, but I hope you got the point. It's just too time intense, that's the big problem. So, wow, you are the first one to mention Romanian aircrafts. Reaper 27. Are you from Romania? No, I'm from Bavaria. Then Dark Vader asks two questions. First one, how long does it usually take to read all of the comments? Well, it depends how many comments there are and which kind of comments they are. So if they're very long, and many of them, it's a different task as to just read through one sentence comments, which I have to admit, when it comes to a video that has 200-300 comments, I prefer the one-liners. Okay, and so it can take over an hour to read through them, especially when I come to the golden opportunity video. There are more than 900 comments as of now. That takes multiple hours. Now that takes a day to work through it. I went through the first 100 comments and I'm blasted by the response of the community so far. So that gives you a good indication how long it takes. It depends on the video, the activity of the community, but it can take up to an hour. Then the second question is, do you think that the battle rating of the Jagdtiger is still adequate? A lot of tanks can penetrate its upper plate and the Pak 44 bounces all the time. So first of all, what you're talking here about is power creep. And if we would lower the battle rating of the Jagdtiger, well, then other vehicles at the lower end that are also not so very good at their respective battle ratings might find themselves in the sight of a Jagdtiger again, which they previously didn't have the fortune to find themselves in. So it's again a big issue of the power creep that we saw over the years. Jagdtiger, once one of the best tanks in the game, impenetrable front and monstrous gun and so forth, but now, you know, it bounces all the time, it doesn't go through, it doesn't do the damage, it has still a very long reload. If you think about the Foch, it is much more mobile, it has better armor, it has a better gun with less reload and more penetration, and same if not better post-penetration effect. And it also has a 15mm machine gun on top. So yeah, it got power creeped quite hefty. I don't drive the Jagdtiger myself anymore. The golden times of this tank are long gone. Then Wolfie646 asks, so why do people say it's good Orange left War Thunder in the first place? Well, it's their opinion, and Orange excelled at polarizing the community. There were people that absolutely loved him, there were other people that absolutely despised him, how he well, behaved on live streams or in videos. A lot of people just simply didn't agree with his points of views. and he really excelled at polarizing. So obviously when people say it's good that Orange left, you're listening to the part that obviously didn't like him. A lot of people were also sad, and I was kind of divided in my option. I think it's good that he takes a break for himself from War Thunder, but he should come back at certain times, and we will see if he really goes through the break of War Thunder, which I honestly, personally doubt. Well then, next question comes from ML Chiefro. I hope I pronounced it right. And he asks if I have a Facebook fan page. Oh god, that's a difficult word. No, but I am on Twitter, so you will find the link in the video description. So if you want to follow me a little bit, then Twitter is the place to go. Next question comes from J-Man Gaming, and it's basically, if an international tech tree is in it, it would be OP because they have the best of the best, question mark. Well, it depends entirely where you put the vehicles with regards to the battle rating. If Gaijin does it right, they will fit in, they will bring a bit more unique flavor to it, but to call it outright overpowered is, I guess, not true. I mean, to be honest, if you compare it to the former example of the Jagdtiger versus the Foch, you kind of see the Foch by itself is a very good tank, but it's not as good anymore as at a higher battle rating that it is at its current battle rating, where it's arguably way too strong in terms of gun, armor and mobility combination. Next question comes from Tomasz Krajniuk, I hope I pronounced it right. I watched it from start to finish. Do I get a cookie? Yes, here you get a virtual one. And then there is a comment that I absolutely love, and I will read it out to you in its full length, and you can make up your mind yourself. It's obviously from a big fan of mine, and it's from Gaming Today. And he begins, "You are just bad if you think the 109s are bad, and that is a fact. Lol, Lemao. I just love it that you made a whole video saying you are not a wearaboo, yet almost every video you ever make you state how bad off the Germans are. That is pretty much the definition of a wearaboo, when the reality is not that at all. Give me a break, man, and stop talking BS. And the BF-109s are almost every tier are some of the best fighters in game for killing fighters, so learn to play applies. Play World of Warplanes and get a feel for a game with zero balance, plus a base mechanic of paying to get anywhere. Another thing, every tree has undertiered vehicles, you dumb twat. Not just the allies, another point of wearaboo syndrome." Oh, I absolutely love this comment. It just shows me that I not just have a big variety of topics, you know, about having played every nation at every battle rating myself, and know what I'm talking about for tanks and for planes. And he also gets into another comment that I absolutely love. Napalmratte, aha ha ha ha. Got meme boyo. But I play all the relevant nations and not the trash ones, Italy, France. But keep spreading those straight lies, continuing to say how helpless German teams are cause of their vehicles. FYI, German teams are just trash, fanboy, and that's why I just like US teams for air. Okay, you know, this is an opinion. I absolutely love this because it shows me that I have a huge variety in my comment section, from very good comments to excellent ones like this one. So from such a outstanding comment to a serious question again from Abyssal, question from the Rambling with Mal. So we can consider to put the Panther 2 and 105 King Tiger down to 6.7, as well as increase the battle rating of some allied tanks. But with the 7.7 Black Hole, how could this help? Yeah, basically the problem is that we have too much compression and too much weird stuff of vehicles at battle ratings that they even don't belong into the same, how should I say, they don't even belong into the same tier. Okay, when we look at tanks like the Ontas or the or some other American 6.7 tanks that just throw around the heat and make armor really worthless. I mean, they can take on easily tanks a full battle rating or even 2 battle ratings higher with their autoloaders or amount of recoilless rifles. I think they are really a pain in the back of not just German but also Soviet teams and so forth. But at the same time, the Germans never got compensated, much like the British in terms of mobility. And so it's a never-ending story of problems that we have in the game because of content gets put in, you know, it's made in great detail and so forth, but the guy responsible for, you know, just putting a battle rating to it has no idea what he's doing. So I have no idea what I want to think about this. So another question comes from Ayobus. Napalm, why the Kampfpanzer gets a M551 stock ATGM shell that can't kill a T-64 from the front, while they give the Russians the AP FSDS that one-shots everything, and why do I have to spend more than 120 KRP in a stock KPZ with no fire prevention equipment and no parts just to unlock a shell that actually kills the opponents? And finally, where can we use the hydraulic suspension with the KPZ? Attempt number 3. So, okay, I think I have to answer this one. First of all, I think, yeah, the T-64 is again a very stock grind friendly tank that just works straight out. It has not the best stats when it comes to the mobility compared to the KPZ, but it always carries a few main selling points with it from the get-go. It now has the faster reload. It has a stock AP FSDS shell that can easily deal with the KPZ, and the KPZ has just a lot of problems with the stock ATGM dealing with the T-64, which gets spammed a lot, I might hasten to add. So if you look at top tier teams, entire teams just consisting of T-64s, and they're just rushing in, and then you are there with your stock KPZ, and you have to hit with that pixel, you have to hit the gun with an ATGM, and you know, it takes a while that you get to a standstill, fire the ATGM, and actually guide it to that few pixels where you actually can damage the enemy tank from the front, where he just can move, fire on the move, has a faster reload, and just can take the beating even when slightly angled because of the side panels. So yeah, there is definitely a stock grind discrepancy there that I actually despise myself a lot. And how to use the hydraulic suspension with the Kampfpanzer 70, I have no idea. I think even if it would be there, which I have not checked if it even is there, I mean, if there is a hydraulic suspension, you have to assign keys to it to use it. And did I make a video about it with the STB1? I guess I did. So you might look up that, how to set the keys to it. So that answers that question, hopefully. There is definitely a stock bias going on at top tier. Then the next bunch of questions comes from Santi Azen. Why not trying simulator events or trying to make mini movies, documentaries about tanks with cinematic cams? About the first question with the tank simulator events, that's actually a good idea. But whenever I look into it, the tanks that are there are either completely misplaced or uninteresting. So up until this point, I always had other stuff to do, but it always was banging in the back of my head, hey, come on, let's play Tank Simulator. Look, because when I played it in the past, it always was full of adrenaline rush when you just tried to hide from aircraft, but at the same time you wanted to engage the enemy. You wanted to flank, but not too wide. And you might say, well, it's, you know, very similar to a realistic. Technically, yes, but you know, a lot of the tricks like looking around the corner with the camera view in third person, you can now no longer do. And so it's much more intense to play simulator, and I might have a go at it soon. Then, why not making some mini movies or documentaries about the tank with cinematic cams? It takes a lot, and I mean a lot of time, and I am not a very patient person like Squire that has a lot of minions, because whenever I wanted to do a video like this, it took me ages to get even like 20 people together, and that was just in conjunction with an announcement on the Orange Doom streams and, you know, activating everybody that I could get my hands on, that I knew, and hey, is there a friend of you that has this kind of vehicle? And then people just were impatient and were not ready to invest the time. And after we actually set it up, oh, now I have to eat, now I have to leave, sorry about this, guy, have fun. And even, you know, the War in Desert video, which is one of the best edited videos ever on my channel, it took days to get it done. And with this amount of effort and time invested, it's not possible to keep up the daily video output. And also a lot of people just simply then don't watch that. So it's always very tricky, okay? It's a lot of setups, a lot of working with the replays. War Thunder has the potential for it, and I would love to do it, but there are just not enough people that would help me out. And it's also always, you know, a lot of people from America or even from, you know, Japan would love to help me, but they are in a completely different time zone, so it's always difficult to bring the people together. And my subscriber base is literally around the world. Yes, I know a lot of people would love to help me, but it is just too much effort at the moment, and there are no real projects that I would think of. I mean, there is an old project lying around where it's an attack on Port Novosibirsk with some German torpedo bombers and, you know, Heinkel 111s, and then they go into the flag zone. But then the flag module that I wanted to use on the K29 or 29K was removed. It would have been awesome, but then you need a lot, and I mean a lot of players, and then also to set up the potato trucks and to let the bombers fly at a certain altitude on a certain route, where then the auto destruction of the shells goes off and you get this little cinematic poofs or flood bursts. It's really difficult to set up. It's possible, but it's difficult. So yeah, and to bring the people together that have the required vehicles, and we need some ships to bring in some targets, so that means we need to wait for the open beta at least to get into a custom battle and so forth. And then I need really 64 players, okay? So do not underestimate that. Okay, next question. Where do we have a next question? So there are many more questions actually. Kevin Guo asks if I can test the American 50 cals, especially M2, because he never killed an enemy fighter with fire, and when he gets set on fire he burns through. I have no idea. I kill a lot of fighters with fire, however I found that the Russians extinguish their fires quite regularly, and you think, oh, they're already burned for like 30 seconds, they will burn through for sure and they get the kill, but then suddenly they turn around and threaten to kill you in return, and this is highly annoying. And when I get set on fire I always burn down or I take massive damage. I mean, one of the few planes that actually from time to time extinguishes fires are the Do 335, but then the flight model is even more trash, or the 84 Skyraider, where you then also fall out of the sky. And then one possibility is to cut your throttle to 0 and you know, stop the engine and dive a little bit. That is actually something that helps from times, but I'm not quite sure if this is confirmation bias, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's really random and RNG. I have no real final solution for that. Then Alto asks, as always, sharp and accurate analysis and so forth, and he asks, my question, Napalm, please, do you think Gaijin should drop arcade mode once for all? Definitely no. Arcade is the way that you bring new players enjoying the game, where they can go over the stock grind with tanks, with planes, and where they have sometimes even a better and easier time for certain types of tanks and or planes. For example, planes ground attackers, they sometimes can rack up the kills more often. Or planes that have not a lot of ammunition can actually rearm in flight, and that is very, very helpful. Furthermore, for tanks, you know, you still can then move if you are if you don't have parts, and even if your gun breech is damaged, you have a, you know, you can roll the dice 3 times if you fire or not, and this is very good for overcoming the stock grind. Furthermore, certain people just don't like realistic, you know, and they prefer arcade. People that come from other games such as Armored Warfare or World of Tanks, they just might have a look at arcade playstyle first and then wander into the realistic mode. And especially for planes, to go from arcade to realistic is a big step, and when you first play on those big maps in air realistic, you feel to get lost. So to be a bit more comfortable with the game and the game mechanics, it's really interesting and important to have arcade. It is not as much of an issue to split the player base as it would be more important to fix the games. I don't think that if you drop arcade mode, suddenly, you know, the queue times in realistic go down and the amount of chat players goes up, because the same problems that we have in the game modes, you know, stay with the game modes if you eliminate another game mode. And maybe people will consider to leave the game, so you actually will cut down the player base and not just shift them to realistic battle. I think diversity is important, and it gives so much more opportunities for certain vehicles within War Thunder. For example, when you think about Tank Arcade, the Begleitpanzer is one of the best SPAs in there, especially when you think about the repair cost of SPA in arcade, which costs 20,000 Silver Lines repair costs, but the Begleitpanzer costs like 4,000, 5,000, and you can take down the enemy aircraft equally good, and you can defend yourself against tanks to a certain degree with your ATGM and your AP shots, you know, at least against the lightly armored ones, which a lot of the SPAs just simply have a lot of problems. So arcade has its place, and I'm highly against dropping arcade despite not having played arcade in a long time. So I guess this is one of the big difference in point of view compared to, for example, the Orange Doom. So another question comes from Fabi Hubi. Hey Napalmratte, can you make one more German video? I might consider it when I have time for it. Obviously I have to play a German tank for that, so let's see how it goes if I get a nice match, which is not considered to be over seal clubbing. So yeah, I consider it and I want to do it. Then Aha asks, question, do you think Gaijin will ever buff the Tiger to enter 10.5? So basically this is again the discussion about the big compression issues that we have. Then some Pete asks, do you think the FV101 Scorpion should be added for the British as a scout tank? First of all, yes, the British need a scout tank, but it depends where you put it, and I have no idea what the FV101 is. I think the British need a scout vehicle as well, like the Germans. That is not premium, okay? I might add this quickly here. Well, then there is also another important or interesting comment from Dalma23, and he says, can we please concentrate on the game? I get that it's hot topic about Orange or about some donkeys players calling you Nazi, but I don't want this channel to switch into a talk show. For me, the Panzer IV F2 video already was too much talking about nothing. Over concentrating on the unimportant details is bad. Let's simplify it, please. Also about game getting not so fun. Please then concentrate on the fun aspects. Don't do ships. I already get that there are no-go. Have some fun, play record. Then there is some drama in the background, please mention it. But please keep it away from the channel. Thank you. So I get your point. However, first of all, as I mentioned in the answer to you, Orange was important for me. And it is important to talk about this once, especially on Duck Talks, which is the video series where I talk. I also included timestamps in not just in the Duck Talks here, but also in the Panzer IV F2 video, so you can jump over the intro or to just the parts that you like or enjoy, whatever. I put there timestamps. You were not forced to watch through it. And then, yeah. I mentioned drama when it's important, and there is so much drama in War Thunder, and you know, to just focus on the fun part. I'm sorry. It depends what you see as fun, and I don't have fun driving around with the British and seal clubbing everything with the stabilizer, getting always down tier and so forth. It's just a perspective. I want the ultimate goal to be War Thunder being balanced and fun for the overwhelming majority of players in each nation, at each battle rating, in each game mode, and we are far from it. And so I think to mention the stuff that I have experienced is what my channel is kind of about, isn't it? So I see your point, and you are right, I should focus a bit more on videos with fun and so forth, but to not mention problems as a YouTuber that focuses on the game that much is like denying its existence, okay? And I already have enough haters that say I'm not talking about enough about the problems. I have haters for actually making videos at all. I have haters that say, why don't you play German tanks 24/7? I have people that tell me, why don't you play American tanks 24/7? Where is the next chat video and so forth? War Thunder has a lot of possibilities. And even with over 600 videos made already, I'm not even close to having covered everything. There is just too much new stuff coming in. There is too much old stuff that we have to have a look at. I need to look at the game from the perspective of a unicorn player, but also a new player. I need to look at it from a balanced perspective, but also how Gaijin gets the money that they require to pay the bills and to make a profit for them to have an interest of further developing the game. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, they're a company, but they can deliver. Same goes for wargaming, you know. I know what people need to achieve with certain things in the game. If there is a new premium tank, of course it needs to have a selling point. But please don't make it pay to win. Please don't make it overpowered like the IS-6 compared to the IS-3 and IS-4. You know, I think the IS-6 is better than the IS-3 and IS-4 within the same tech tree, with a lower battle rating, faster firing gun, more mobility, and arguably better armor. So this is kind of a good example of what is wrong with the game. If you look at the IS-2 mod 1944 Revenge for the Hero Brother or the Diesel Tiger 2, I have absolutely no problems with them because they are so similar to tech tree versions and they are not overpowered, okay? They are not weaker or stronger in a fundamental way than the actual tech tree version. So those are good premiums. And this is a good way for Gaijin to make money. But I guess an Object 120 that belongs to 8.7 or even 9.0 because of the gun and the reload rate and the mobility is fine at 7.7 as a premium tank? No way. No way. So those are just fun. That are things that rob the fun out of the game. Please keep that in mind. Filipino Ramp basically asked if the rank of a vehicle influences the battle rating up tier or down tier basically. The answer is, as far as I can tell, no. I think the rank is important, that we have enough vehicles in one rank for one nation to unlock the next rank. And it's just a rough estimation where it should be. I mean, if you think about, for example, the BMP-1, it has a battle rating of 7.3, so it meets a lot of tier 5 vehicles, tier 4 vehicles, despite being a tier 6 vehicle. So I hope that answers your question. And the next question comes from Rahul Cement. What's your opinion about research of parts and fire prevention equipment in tanks? It's bullshit in my opinion. First of all, I agree to that. Especially at high tier tanks, it's just so bad, and especially the stock run on a T95 where you get shot all the time and people aim at your gun breech. Without a repair kit, you're doomed. And fire prevention equipment, well, even in water you burn down. You can't share it with some of your teammates that happen to have fire prevention equipment, and also you can't refill it in a cap. All the things that I just mentioned are, please Gaijin, change it. But let's face it, they will never face that part because it makes way too much money, because people are tired of that and they just throw the 1,000 golden needles at Gaijin to unlock the fire prevention equipment and also the repair kits. I don't like this kind of business practice, but at least it's not as drastic as, for example, in World of Tanks, when you put your crew into a new tank and you have a 50% crew, or at best a 75% crew, and it takes ages to get the experience to get it back to 100%, to a level of crew performance that you happen to have in the old tank before you redistributed your crew, which is absolute bullshit as well. Same goes for World of Warships, although that one captain is not that bad. So in this respect, World of Warships is then better than World of Tanks. So I hope that answered that question. The next question from the same person, so Rahul Samant, was is there any other way to balance tanks like that so that we can lower the repair costs? He was talking about the FE4202 and its huge repair bill, but it has a battle rating that is not okay for it. So I think this is very poorly done at the hands of Gaijin when it comes to how they try to balance battle ratings with repair bills. It does not work. Look at the Japanese planes. Look at some of the tanks. If they are too powerful and they get too good results, raise the battle rating. End of discussion. So there you have it. The only explanation why British tanks might not get a raise of their battle rating, the 20-pounder variants that is, might be that that there would be then a gap in the tech tree. While balance-wise this would be good, because they would face other tanks, then the British at this tier wouldn't have anything to fill the gaps at the moment. On the other hand, you know, there's just such a performance gap in the British tech tree anyways. Before 6.3, the most tanks are like meh, despite the AP buff and high rate of fire and so forth, because of the lack of reverse gear. And suddenly you get all the benefits for jumping up a little bit with the battle rating. You get stabilizer, you get APDS, you get high rate of fire, you get armor, you get reverse gear, maneuverability, everything. And that is just way too much, not just for your own tech tree, but also the opposition, as we can see when you play the Tiger. Another question comes from Stefan B. Hi Napalm, what do you think about the up tiers with the German 5.7? And he says that 85% of his matches were 6.3, 6.7s. At most there is one or two RE251 in the team, and the rest are Tiger 1s. And he asks if this is made so that his tanks are food for the French, or if the matchmaker is really that bad. First of all, I noticed that myself, and there are two possible explanations. First of all, the Tiger and the Panther at 5.7 get spammed so much that the matchmaker has to distribute them a lot, and there are not enough other nations tanks playing so that you get a 50% ratio of up tier and down tier. But on the other hand, maybe the French get spammed and they don't have not enough targets, and the only way for the matchmaker is to make it so that you know, there is an inequality in battle rating. I think it's completely nonsense. I've experienced this with my 6.3 planes, the Bearcat and the P51H, where you have to fight nothing but jet teams, especially the Yak 23, and I think this is very, very bad game design. Best solution, mirror matchmaking. Second solution, bring bloody balance to the game. And one of the other reasons is, well, if you fight nation versus nation, obviously every nation has a very different flavor. That also explains the spam of FE4202, because certain people just don't care about silver income or loss for the repair kits, because or the repair costs, because they have premium. They can make enough civil lines with overpowered planes, much like the German P47 or the Russian one, or other premium planes at lower tiers, and then you can play like 5 games in a FE4202 that are other garbage, but you still can play them. So it's a big question mark what actually happens there with the matchmaker. Mark 1 Raven asks basically about the maps and if Gaijin should focus on the original maps to rework them instead of creating new ones. Well, kind of both, really. I don't think it's that difficult to shuffle around the airfields and the ground targets a little bit, or just rotate the map by 90 degrees, whereas the airfields and the targets, the ground targets for example, or the areas of interest, then have the same place on the minimap, but the map rotates by 90 degrees. It's difficult to explain, but a difference in orientation on certain maps would be really, really nice. And I think they don't need to spend that much time. And when you talk about balance and testing, well, you know, certain maps that we have already in the game are so terrible, it's not even funny. I mean, imagine rotating Kursk by 90 degrees, or you're rotating the spawn zones by 90 degrees. That would be really, really interesting, right? So finally, the last question comes from Prantz. I think we need the cruisers ASAP for ships. If they want to save naval forces. What do you think? So this is the last question and I want to answer it in great detail. No. The cruisers are not necessary. I mean, if we just put cruisers into the game, what we get are bigger ships with more firepower, more guns, higher caliber and so forth. But the core game mechanics are not there, and currently Gaijin is selling PT boats, and a PT boat doesn't have it that much easier against a cruiser than compared to a destroyer. The same problems are there. Cruisers are just bigger destroyers from the perspective of a PT boat. The map balance, the map design, the capture zones and all this stuff doesn't really change when we just implement cruisers. Yes, bigger ships will come into the game. Gaijin has somewhat announced it. I'm interested to have a look at them, but they will not be a game changer. Bigger guns do not solve the problems within a game. You need to focus on the game core mechanics to make the game fun and enjoyable to play. And if that is the case, players will play it. Players want to proceed, they want to progress in the game, they will spend money on the game for premium account, premium vehicles, and if Gaijin does it right, a lot of premium ships will be sold as well. PT boats are the key. PT boats are very important. PT boats must be the key, because this is the great difference to World of Warships. This is the great difference in gameplay possibility. We need harbor maps, we need more cover for PT boats, we need dedicated areas for the big combat of destroyers. The community needs to be educated how it has to be played. APHG shells actually have to detonate within a destroyer which has more armor than a PT boat where the APHG shells detonate. We need more balance against aircraft, and well, the economy, how this works out, has to be seen. So that's it for today. After over an hour again, I have an excuse. There were so many questions. It took me like half an hour to answer all the questions, so it's your fault. Jokes aside, if you have a question, feel free to answer it in the or ask it in the comment section, and I will answer them in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I again think that you had some sort of podcast planned with it for that length. Let me know in the comment section if you actually use it as a podcast or you watch it because also of the gameplay in the background. Finally, that's it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more, share it with your friends, and we'll see each other on the battlefields and in the skies of War Thunder.